Hello, welcome to Module 10, Managing Large Classes. In this video, I'll give you the definition of a large class. Then, I'll talk about the advantages of teaching large classes. Next, I will cover the challenges of managing large English language classes. And finally, I will refer to the principle for large class teaching. So, what is a large class? The definitions of a large class vary. What we label a large class depends on context and expectations. For example, teachers working in private language schools in Europe may expect classes of 10 to 15. So, for them, 20 is often seen as too large. Not surprisingly, therefore, different writers have different opinions about how large is large. All those recent definitions are applicable to classes of over 30 students. Large classes are not unique to low-income countries. They can be found in almost any country in the world. And in most countries, students in university lectures can find themselves learning with many more than 40 classmates. Many teachers may complain about the challenges they may face when teaching large classes. However, it is also worth recognizing numerous benefits that teaching large classes brings about. In this video, I'd like to mention several of them. When you teach large classes, they offer you a high-energy setting that is more fun and exciting, the opportunity to improve your interpersonal skills, a diversity of students and learning styles, and more chance to involve learners in class activities. I will talk about them in more detail in the next part. First of all, we all agree that classes with many students will be quite noisy, but they also offer a high-energy setting that is more fun and exciting. Classes will go quickly when there are numerous students seeking your attention. In fact, while teaching a large class, you will never find yourself looking at the clock. Besides, in large classes, lessons and activities will take longer to complete, so there will be no need for fillers. Second, large classes offer you the opportunity to improve your interpersonal skills. As their teacher, you normally try different ways to get to know each student as an individual through their work in class or their lives outside of it. Thanks to this, you and your students will get closer to each other. Many of these relationships are likely to maintain until later in their lives. Thirdly, another value of a large class is that it contains a diversity of students and learning styles, so you can use many different active and fun ways of teaching. Working with large classes must be great professional experience for teachers. When there are many learners in a class, they can share many different ideas and interesting life experiences. This stimulates the children and enliven those parts of your lesson where children can discuss and learn from each other. Finally, when working with large classes, we all notice that we can involve students in many activities. In these classes, students can be very helpful in managing classroom's physical space, and it helps them to develop a sense of responsibility. They can hang up students' work, create bulletin boards, and put away instructional material at the end of each lesson. You can even recruit your best students to act as co-teachers. So far, I have mentioned a number of advantages when teaching large classes. Now, let's move on to the challenges of managing these classes. In fact, both teachers and students have to deal with various difficulties in large classes. Now, let's talk about the challenges in large classes from teachers' perception. In general, when managing large classes, teachers often have a number of problems. They have difficulty in whole class teaching. They also find it difficult to work with students of mixed abilities. Challenges also come during the exam time, and limited resources for large classes also cause problems for teachers. Each of these difficulties will be discussed in more detail later. First of all, let's talk about challenges in whole class teaching. When managing large classes, teachers usually have difficulty in giving instructions, maintaining control and discipline, and organizing group work, because they become more demanding and take more time and energy. The whole class teaching is also more difficult in a large class when teachers explain a new concept, ask for answers to comprehension questions, or drill new vocabulary. In actual fact, in large classes, it can be difficult to make sure that all learners can hear the teacher, read the board work, and feel involved. Besides, there are two challenges that relate specifically to teaching and learning languages, including the English language. One of them is the difficulty in practicing language skills. We all know that to learn a language, we need to use it. However, in large classes, it can be a real challenge just getting learners to speak English. Some may feel unwilling to talk together in a foreign language. Others may need help deciding what to say, and once we get them started, it can often be a challenge to manage the noise levels. Aside from speaking, we may also need lots more storybooks for reading practice and audio equipment such as CD players and extra speakers to practice listening skills. The other problem is providing effective feedback to learners. To improve and learn from their mistakes, language learners need feedback, and this becomes more challenging in large classes. The obvious example of this is marking written work. But we also need to give feedback on speaking skills and help each individual learner. How to manage the time to cover the corrective feedback is really a problem for teachers of any foreign languages in large classes. Another challenge facing learners is working with mixed ability students. We often find a wide range of abilities in large classes, from learners who learn quickly to those who need more help. This brings challenges. For example, when one or two of the faster learners dominate group work or get bored when we explain something they already know. Conversely, weaker learners may sometimes feel humiliated if they can't answer a question, and sometimes misbehave out of frustration. In addition, most teachers find preparing learners for exam and conducting and marking the exam hard work. But carrying out these tasks is even more challenging when classes are large, especially in terms of ensuring every student is ready and marking all the exam paper. Last but not least, large classes often get limited resources because large classes are often found in low-income countries. Many teachers of large classes also face this additional challenge. For example, they may not have enough textbooks or other materials to make lessons more interesting. Next, let's move on to students' perception of the challenges in large class. It is interesting to note that there is great similarities between learners and teachers' perception of large classes. Learners describe challenges such as lack of adequate space leading to overcrowded classroom, inadequate attention from the teacher, lack of opportunity to participate in classroom activity, and difficulty in getting their written work checked or receiving oral feedback from the teacher. And now, what are the principles of large class teaching? Norman, 1989, suggests moving from problem to devising principle for teaching in large classes. He suggests 2 general and 4 specific principles for rethinking teaching and learning in large classes. The 2 general principles are: be realistic and give more responsibility to the learners. We should be realistic to realize that there are some things that are either very difficult or simply impossible to do in large classes. Similarly, there are other things that can be done well in large classes. So, instead of feeling guilty about what cannot be done, explore and focus on what can be done well in large classes. We should also give more responsibility to the learners. We can consider sharing responsibility for learning with the learners instead of taking responsibility for everything that happens inside and outside a language learning class. And Carmen's 4 specific principles suggest ways of sharing responsibility with the learners to address some of the common problems teachers face in large classes. First, organize learning in ways that take the spotlight, that is, the teacher, away from you by using, for example, pair and group work. This will also allow the learner to take responsibility for their learning. Second, remember not to try to monitor everything. Share control of learning by giving some responsibility to the learners. Third, in terms of evaluation, do not feel stressed about evaluating everything that the learners produce. Learners can be encouraged to self-assess or check their peers' work and thus share the responsibility for checking learning with you. Alternatively, being realistic, you may decide that all the language produced by the learners does not need to be corrected. And finally, in order to address the problems of giving individual attention to learners in large classes, use activities that allow for increased opportunities for individual interaction between teachers and students. To summarize, in this video, I have talked about advantages when teaching, as well as challenges of managing large English language classes. I have also covered the principle of large class teaching. In the next video, I am going to talk about issues of managing large classes. Thank you for watching.